Russia invaded its neighbor Ukraine almost 10 months ago to this day. Since then, the United States government has spent more than $100 billion on that war on the other side of the world in a country with Washington has long stated contains no vital interest to the United States. To put that amount into perspective, the amount the U.S. has spent in 10 months is almost double the entire Russian military budget for the year, which is $65 billion. The amount is more than double the average annual amount that the U.S. spent on its own war in Afghanistan, which we were told that, unlike what's happening in Ukraine, it was a war necessary to protect the security of American citizens. So in just 10 months, we're spending more than twice on the war in Ukraine what we spend each year on our own ostensible self-defense war in Afghanistan. And it's 17 times more than what the UN told Elon Musk it needed to spend in order to avert world famine in 2022, a claim that was then used to shame Musk for spending $44 billion to buy Twitter instead of feeding everyone on the brink of famine. That amount is also close to 1/8 of the U.S.-owned military budget just approved by Congress this week, a sprawling, oozing record-breaking package of waste in the amount of $858 billion, signaling the imminent arrival of the first ever $1 trillion military budget, 1/8 of our overall military budget for Ukraine. This is all for a stalemate of a war that virtually every military analyst agrees has no end in sight, meaning the ultimate amount spent by the United States on this war will be far, far greater by the time it's over, whenever that might be. Now, whatever else you might think about whether the U.S. government should be spending so much of your money on what it calls the war in Ukraine, which mostly means pouring money into the coffers of weapons manufacturers like Raytheon and Boeing, the CIA, along with some rebuilding efforts in Ukraine, you might take some comfort at least in the knowledge that the Ukrainian government is deeply grateful for your sacrifices. Except they're not grateful at all. If anything, they're more bitter than grateful, bitter that the U.S. haven't given them more of your money. The United States dispatched a U.S. military jet yesterday to pick up Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in Poland to bring him to the United States, where he's scheduled to meet for hours today with President Joe Biden and then deliver a live address to the Congress starting in about 30 minutes. In his speech, reports make clear Zelensky will once again do what he's been doing all year, telling the U.S. government and the American people that while he sort of appreciates the billions upon billions of dollars of funds paid by American taxpayers that we've sent to that country, it is nowhere near enough, and he wants more and more and more and more. As AP reports, using the tone of a Hollywood adventure film starring our brave and inspiring Ukrainian leader, quote, on Tuesday, Zelensky made a daring and dangerous trip to what he called the hottest spot on the 1,300-kilometer front line, the city of Bakhmut in Ukraine's contested Donetsk province. In a video released by his office from the Bakhmut visit, Zelensky was handed a Ukrainian flag and alluded to delivering it to U.S. leaders. Quote, the guys handed over our beautiful Ukrainian flag with their signatures for us to pass on, Zelensky said in the video. We are not in an easy situation. The enemy is increasing its army. Our people are braver and need more powerful weapons. We will pass it on from the boys to the Congress, to the President of the United States. We are grateful for their support, but it is not enough. It is a hint. It is not enough. Now, I have several questions about all of that, but I'd like to begin with this one, as I regard it as the most important question when it comes to the always profound debate of whether the United States government will involve itself in a war, or for that matter, it's the most important question when it comes to debates over whether the U.S. government will do anything. In what ways has your life or the lives of your families been improved, secured, or enhanced by the more than $100 billion sent by the U.S. government to fuel this war on the other side of the world? Now, to be fair, there are some Americans whose lives have been materially improved by these expenditures. Those are the tiny sliver of Americans who own large amounts of shares of the leading weapons manufacturers. 2022 has been quite a poor year for the stock market in general. Stocks are down across the board. Here you can see the New York Stock Exchange performance for 2022, and it shows a loss overall of 13.3%. Fortunately, though, for arms manufacturers, they have not succumbed to this decline. And that's due almost entirely to the ongoing transfer of huge amounts of your money into the coffers of weapons manufacturers to send weapons to Ukraine and then to deplete our own depleted stocks. Here you see the stock trend of Northrop Grumman for this year, up almost 40%. And now you have here the stock of Lockheed up over 25%. So they're doing very well, the stockholders who are Americans who have large amounts of stock in those countries. But for ordinary Americans, what is the benefit to them from these huge outlays of money for Ukraine? I'm asking that earnestly. I've yet to hear any politician who supports these expenditures even once articulate a reason why these expenditures could possibly improve the lives of American citizens, or why the U.S. role in Ukraine could do that. And that really leaves me wondering, does that question even matter anymore? Is that relevant to decision makers in Washington? Does this policy that we are going to support and heavily fund have any real prospect of improving the lives of the people who voted for us to come to Washington with just one goal in mind, to make their lives and their families' lives better? I don't mean, do they really have that motive? I know they don't. I mean, do they even pretend any longer to have that? I paid very close attention to the debate in the U.S. over this war in Ukraine from the very start. I was even placed on an official list of Russian propagandists by the Ukrainian government, alongside people like Senator Rand Paul and former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, for the crime of questioning whether my government should be involved in that war. Apparently, along with believing he has a claim to stick his hands into our national treasury without limits, President Zelensky also clearly believes he has the right to maintain blacklists of American journalists and politicians who commit the crime of openly debating our government's war policies in our country. But the real point is, I have paid very close attention to the debate, and from the beginning, those who have been demanding U.S. support for Ukraine without limits have not even bothered with this pretense that the war was necessary for, or even relevant to, improving the lives of American citizens. Now, maybe you are someone who doesn't think that matters. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update. Catch our full shows for free, live weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, and join our locals community at greenwald.locals.com for all of my written journalism, exclusive after-show Q&As, and more.